Here's Neil. Bear with me for a second.
Indulgence.
I beg the court's indulgence. Hi, welcome to the THC Show. I'm your host, Neil Magnuson. This is the show where we talk about THC. And in this case, it is about tetrahydrocannabinol, but it's also mostly about truth, hope, and change. We hope that by telling the truth, we can affect change. And so that's what we're doing. We're before the courts now, finally. After a 2-year wait, a little longer than 2 years since they busted us, raided us, stole, wow, so much from us, charged us, myself and George and Andrew, and here we are 2 years later, 2 years of a prosecutor getting paid to come up with witnesses and disclosure, 2 years of some sort of punishment hanging over our heads. George and Andrew have dealt with theirs. Their punishment was to be good citizens for 40 hours in the neighborhood here, assisting the Aboriginal Police Department. I could have had the same deal, but I'm not taking that deal. I'm not taking any deal. They'd let me off if I write a letter of apology for what we're doing here. Well, there's nothing to apologize for, that's for damn sure. So forward we go. It was a short day today in court. I mean, for me it was a bit of a long day because it started out real early. After 5 o'clock I really couldn't get back to sleep, and excited about the prospects of the day. So they had 2 out of their 5 witnesses available today. 3 of them didn't show up. 2 of them because they're sick. I would imagine they're sick of doing their jobs, and they're sick of the idea of coming to court to try to punish me for helping people in this neighborhood. The other one just wasn't available this afternoon. The 2 officers that gave evidence were UCs. There's a publication ban on their names because it's dangerous to be a UC. People don't like UCs. They lie to you. They are trying to hurt you. And in our case, we don't deserve to be hurt. But in any case, these 2 young gentlemen got up there and described, well, the first one, how he had been instructed to find the RV on Cordova Street. He says he found it on West Cordova. Well, we're not on West Cordova, but I don't think that's going to have much weight with the courts. His notes were full of West Cordova. So he didn't know where the RV was. He didn't know the geography of downtown. And maybe for all anybody knows, he was on West Cordova. And one of the other RVs that have popped up in the area over the course of the last few years was where he went. We'll let the courts decide on all of that stuff. Second officer, he was just a young recruit 2 years ago. He'd only been on the job for 2 to 3 weeks. He was fresh out of the Justice Institute, which I think should be named the Injustice Institute. I went down there one day and tried to talk to the president of the Justice Institute. He was not very helpful at all. They're not there to consider whether justice is justice or whether justice is injustice. In any case, this young man, he had, I should mention the first officer had been an undercover buying drugs in his career prior to this, but never cannabis. Wasn't a particular expert on cannabis. The second cop, he had never handled evidence before, but that was going to be his job on that day. So he handled the evidence. He took what the first cop had purchased from this RV on West Cordova and put it in an evidence bag and stuck it in his front pocket and went about arriving at our RV and arrested us. The evidence was shabby, sloppy, incomplete, misinformed, not very enthusiastically given, I must say. Although more enthusiastically given than the other 3 officers who didn't want to show up at all, it seems. Just like when they were here that day 2 years ago. All those officers, the dozen officers involved in the takedown on Operation Blaze, they were all standing there with their eyes to the ground, looking like their tail was between their legs, not particularly happy about what's going on. So what they gave us today was enough to have it dismissed. Especially if those 2 officers who are sick today are still sick tomorrow. If that's the case, the judge could easily dismiss the case and we could put in a motion to have that happen. But I declined that possibility with my lawyer in any case. It's his job to get me off as easily as he can under whatever circumstances he can. Anything short of that is actually illegal. So he can't advise me to not allow for the dismissal or to put forward a motion to try to get it. But that's what I did anyway. Because I don't want a dismissal based on cops not showing up or their evidence not being complete. If I was going to get a dismissal, I would want a dismissal based on the fact that the judge thinks this whole thing is ludicrous and insane. Smacks the prosecutor's hands, scolds them for bringing this before the courts and wasting all these tax dollars. That would be a win. I would take that one. Although that's not what I want either. We want to survive this preliminary hearing with a yes, you have enough evidence to convict this person judgment from the judge. We don't get to display our evidence. Our evidence will counter theirs and not try to explain that we weren't doing what they said we were doing, which is selling without a license. But our evidence is going to show that we tried to get a license. We did everything we could to get a license. We were told we would have a license a few months into our application to Health Canada. When we first started the project 7+ years ago, there was no licenses to apply for. Still, I tried to do my best to get whatever authorities could be involved and supporting us, without success. Vandu supported what we were doing, and we knew we had to do what we were doing, and we only waited a short while after we didn't get a friendly reception from City Hall before we started handing out cannabis high-dose edibles. Because people were dying daily, and we had a solution that we knew would work. So that's what we did. 3 months into that, Health Canada has a meeting with us through Zoom because it's pandemic times. They apologize for taking so long on our application because, you see, what happened was, I guess I missed a spot there, sorry. After 3.5 years of continuing to do what we were doing at Vandu, for the first year every Saturday, for the second 2.5 years every Thursday and Sunday, never missed a time, through all the different weather patterns that come through Vancouver, people with mobility issues would line up for hours to get their care pack. 2.5 years into doing that, City Council reversed their opinion and passed a motion to support unanimously what it was that we were doing. We met with them. We left there with an understanding that there would be a license for us, a second level of government to promise us a license. Find a storefront, they said. Provide the services that you're providing. We will come and check that. If it's meeting the needs of the neighborhood, then we will license you and support you. Well, that turned out to be a little premature. The city licensing department wasn't in on that whole idea by City Council. And a couple weeks into having the store open, city licensing happened along and decided that we were selling cannabis, as we said we would, because we had to. By the time we met with the city and they said, get a storefront, I mean, how do you pay for a storefront? Donations weren't going to cut it. Donations have been keeping us pretty much even keel, able to sustain the program for 3.5 years by the time we found the storefront. It took us almost a year after City Council approved low barrier access. We found a storefront, we moved in, 2 weeks later city licensing shows up, they don't know about the motion and they don't care. They informed City Council that no, they can't just allow us to be in a store and they're going to give us a license without Health Canada on board. I don't believe that to be the case. I think that the city can license you and permit you to do what is not permitted by federal law if they feel it is in the best interest of their city. It's the beauty of city councils and mayors. They have that kind of power. It's been proven in court a couple different times since then. They can do that. But they've chosen not to. They've chosen just to let the status quo remain. And the status quo is, well, we got kicked out of the storefront, so we couldn't be in there anymore. But we moved immediately the next day into an RV. And we've been providing the same service that we would have provided in the store, mind you, in a little bit more of a limited capacity with the inconvenience of having to work from an RV. But we've provided that same service now for over 3 years. 3 years, and we're in our 5th month of doing everything we were doing in the store. And that's what got us arrested eventually. After over a year and a half of being, or close to a year and a half of being in the RV, we did get raided by the VPD on orders from Ottawa, charged with selling without a license, and on the journey began before the courts. Since that time, we have been left alone. We continue to provide our service 7 days a week, 8 hours a day. We have 420 members that can come and access cannabis for free, 420 milligrams every 4 days that they choose from what we have from our donators and our bakers. We have hundreds of success stories. All 270 members of the CSP are success stories. And there's hundreds more than that we've helped along the way. We've been unable to expand that 270 number for people who can come and get 420 milligrams every 4 days. But we don't turn people away here. If we've got it, they've got it. We provide cannabis for free to people that aren't part of the program every day. Lots of it. We give out free joints to people if that's what they want, or a free edible to people if that's what they want. The edibles can be as strong as 100 milligrams, and they can come every day and get one. So they might not be part of the program that provides 420 milligrams every 4 days. But they can come and get 100 milligrams of edibles every day. And 4 days later, they got 400 milligrams anyway. They're not quite at 420, but neither are we. But we're getting close. That's another topic. We'll get there shortly. In the meantime, here we are. 2 years later, we finally get to go to court. So I don't want it dismissed on some technicality of sloppy police work, miscalculations of times or locations, poorly dealt with evidence, any of that stuff. We've yet to explore the search warrant that came after they seized the van and started searching it. We have lots to explore. No, our dream scenario is not having this case dismissed on a technicality. That is not what needs to happen here. Now, if after tomorrow and perhaps Thursday's proceedings in this preliminary hearing, perhaps if the judge decides that this is ludicrous and insane, why on earth would the federal crown spend all this tax dollars on trying to stop us from helping people and in the process punish me for doing that? If we got that ruling, I might accept it. Still not what we're looking for. But at least a ruling like that would probably fend off any further interference with what we are doing here. It likely would not result in us being allowed to move back into a storefront, although we would immediately consult with the city on that and see if they would be okay with that. If we could provide some dignity to our volunteers and to our clients. Perhaps they will. Who knows? We're not there yet. I don't know if that'll be the ruling. It's not what we're going for. In this round of the courts, we don't present our case. This is about the Crown. The federal Crown gets to get up there and demonstrate to the judge that there's enough evidence to convict me of selling without a license. I'll go back for a minute to that meeting we had over Zoom with Health Canada 3 months into our application. Because that's what happened, of course. Once we got kicked out of the store and told we had to have federal approval, now there's licenses to apply for, and apply for one we did. In fact, we applied for 2. We applied for a license to continue what we were doing in whatever fashion Health Canada felt would work in the form of either a license or an exemption. We also applied for an emergency exemption from the Cannabis Act until that could all be determined, to protect us from exactly what happened a year plus later, a year and a half later. The response from the federal minister, Patty Haydu at the time, and from Benoit Seguin, in charge of Special Licensing and Exemption Division of Health Canada, was very positive. The day after receiving our 2 applications, we were contacted by both of those different departments, alerted that they had received our applications, and informed that they would process those applications in a timely manner, as best they could. And then months went by. That's when we had our meeting with Health Canada, about 3 months after all that. That's where Health Canada said they'd have a license for us in early January. But without specifying which January, we're left wondering when that January is going to appear. We've had 3 come and go. No license. What we have had from Health Canada is a final denial on our application. So I guess the way they've left it is there's no license coming. My job is to get the courts to compel Health Canada to provide us with that license. And that's what we're going for. We want the Crown to succeed in showing that they have the evidence to convict me of being guilty of selling without a license. I've made that pretty easy for them to do. It's not something I ever hid. Wanted a license. Look at that, eh?
He fixed his phone.
I fixed my phone. It's 4:19, so you know what that means. 1 minute to the sacred time of day where we maybe try to get a little more levity into the conversation. So, and as I mentioned prior to that, the city said they would license us. So, excuse me. So our contention is that not selling without a license, but selling with licenses pending is what we were doing. And it goes way deeper than that. And we'll go way deeper than that in court. Oh man, it's 4:19 and I got lots more to say about this.
Keep going.
So in a minute from now, Glenn's going to sneak in beside me. Well, that's a fast minute. Doesn't say 4:20 quite yet. But Glenn Wells is here as he always is.
I got 4:20.
Do you?
Yeah.
I do too now. It's a fine line between the final stages of the 4:19 and the first stages of the 4:20.
Just seconds.
Just seconds involved.
Seconds.
Split seconds involved.
Oh,
So
today was quite the day.
well,
Tomorrow
Sure.
should be interesting if those guys show up.
you know, it was interesting. We had some law students show up.
Oh, really, law students?
We were outside of the courtroom or courthouse for a session ahead of time, and then a live stream to set up what's going on there. It was a good session.
Come join us tomorrow and Wednesday.
We had signage up. We had
Wednesday and Thursday.
a group of school kids come by that were looking at the signs, and so I had some things to say to them. And I told their teacher that it was a long time ago now. I was in grade 12. It was 50 years ago So 50 years ago, maybe it was 50 years ago today. I would have been 17.
Yeah.
It would have been a law field trip to Vancouver to visit the courthouse.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the same day these kids had their law field trip. Maybe it was 50 years ago today.
Continuing, yeah.
But 50 years ago today, I was on a law field trip for grade 12 from Surrey, and we were visiting the courts. And I got separated from the main group of students, as I was usually wont to do. I don't know why. I don't remember why. Maybe I went and had a puff somewhere.
Maybe you were stoned, eh?
In any case, in catching up with the group, I jaywalked in front of the courthouse. Upon entering the courthouse, yes, I did.
Bad.
It wasn't bad. You know, I'm an agile young teenager that has good vision and awareness. There was no threat to me. There was no inconvenience to any cars, but we were in the big city. And when I walked through the courthouse doors, there was a half a dozen cops standing there trying to figure out which one of them got to give me the ticket.
Who did?
Oh, I don't remember.
You don't remember? Okay.
But
one of them did.
I have a good memory, but it's short.
Yeah.
It doesn't span 50 years for the fine details.
I can see that.
So, anyway, they were in court for a little while witnessing, and I noticed that their teacher, once they had left, a little while after that, and after the first break that we had, he came in and sat there and took in what was going on. And what was going on was some pretty inept policemen, as was pointed out both by my lawyer and by the Crown prosecutor, as a matter of fact. One of the officers had to leave, was asked to leave and excuse himself for a short time.
Yeah.
Because the prosecutor was going against normal protocols, and the judge wanted to know why. And she said, "Well, he's wrong, Your Honor." And she said, "Why would you want him to check his notes when he tells you that he remembers what it was?" She says, "Well, because he's wrong, Your Honor."
Yeah, they couldn't get the address right.
Well, no, this was about the time.
Oh,
this was the second officer. It was about the time.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, for my defense lawyer, Jack, for him, it's like an easy win. And that's what he goes for all the time. And he doesn't care how he gets the win.
No, he just wants to win.
You know, any technicality will do, and he's great at that.
And he is.
But that's not okay with me. I don't want to stay in limbo. I don't want to stay worried that because it was thrown out on a technicality, that the government still has a hard on for me, and that they're going to come after me again. And that my staff and myself and all of our products and donated stuff here is all, you know, vulnerable to another raid. Do you know what they took from us?
What? Oh, yeah. Yeah, they took a lot, didn't they? Yeah.
5,910 grams of bagged up cannabis. 1,005 joints. Another 811 grams of dry cannabis. 799 grams of concentrates, 11.6 kilos of edibles.
No,
that's not true. None of that's really true.
Why are the dry and dry not...
I don't know why dry and dry. I wondered that myself when I was writing it down. I go, well, they already had a category of dry. I think he said this was loose dry cannabis.
Oh, in a jar or something, maybe for rolling.
I think in the jars, because we had jars back in those days, maybe.
Yeah.
And a total of $3,025 in cash, which I've had to relinquish because they made it impossible to collect. That's what they do. They seize it under the Property Seizures Act, but they will take you to court and fight you over it. And the advice from Jack is you're not going to win this one.
Yeah. And
they're going to end up with that money anyway. So under objection... I mean, some of that money didn't even belong to anything to do with what we're doing here. It was personal money that belonged to my volunteers.
Yeah.
So, anyway, they took a lot of stuff off of us. And I know it was a big hit. It took a lot to recover from the losses that we had there. But we did. And we never missed a day. And we always had what people needed. And we always had ever since then. So for me, to get a dismissal based on technicalities does not provide us with the things that I'm looking for. So what I'm looking for is stability. The ability to have a low barrier access community cannabis store. and for others to do the same where it would help their people in their neighborhoods. What I'm looking for is to have the medical value of cannabis firmly established before the courts once and for all. We need our main hearing to bring forward the evidence that'll do that. But it's about time that the federal government recognize the medical value of cannabis. It is outrageously ridiculous that they maintain that same position as the U.S. federal government on cannabis having no medical utility at all. Schedule I drug. That is absolutely 100% criminally opposite of what the truth is. Mm-hmm. So we think we can establish in court, through what we're doing here, providing medical cannabis to people seeking relief from addiction and the drivers of addiction, and establish its medical value for those things in the process. And the other thing that I'm trying to accomplish, that we are trying to accomplish here, is to address the Cannabis Act and make it go away. The Cannabis Act is an extremely flawed and criminally hypocritical document. It's what's causing all of these problems. It's virtually the same as what cannabis prohibition was all about for the last 100 years in Canada, with the exemptions that were forced upon the government by the courts, exemptions that did not meet the criteria of the courts, by the way. The Allard case is still open. The judge is still live to it. The government has still not achieved reasonable access for patients. The Cannabis Act has two stated goals. First, they state that they're trying to coerce or somehow get the entire population of Canada to purchase their cannabis through them. Everybody should be using regulated cannabis, according to the Cannabis Act. There's no real mention in there as to why. One would assume, and there has been rhetoric surrounding it, but not within the document itself, that there is suspicion that the non-regulated cannabis is not safe for people. Once again, criminal hypocrisy. The regulated cannabis, in some instances, have proven to be not safe for people.
And pulled off shelves. And
pulled from shelves, recalled, and lawsuits pending. The unregulated cannabis that has been available for the last decade. Well, they say 100 years.
100 years, yeah.
But there really was, because that's when they brought in the prohibition against cannabis was 101 years ago. There was very few arrests in the first 12 years once that was brought in. Then
there probably wasn't much cannabis being used then.
There probably wasn't much being used here.
Population would have been much smaller.
Yeah, and I mean,
you wouldn't have any growers.
Well, and where did it come from? 12 years later, what happened was it was the Vietnam War
that brought it.
That brought it here. Mm-hmm. The draft dodgers brought cannabis here. They settled around Gastown and around that area, and there became quite a culture of cannabis use growing in Vancouver. I guess there was also cannabis use going on in eastern Canada,
San Francisco,
with hashish.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure when that would have hit the marketplace, in cannabis history.
I was dealing hashish.
Well, I know, but we're going back to 1923.
Oh, 23. No,
when the first when the first prohibitions of cannabis came along. I don't know if there was imported hashish going on. I'm sure there probably would have been some. Montreal being a Renaissance city, a world-class city. But in any case, there was no problems. Canada didn't have any problems with cannabis when they made it illegal 100 years ago. There was an article written by a Canadian judge and author, Emily Murphy, a suffragette, who in her book on illicit substances had a chapter on marijuana. The New Menace was the title, where she blatantly lied and gave misinformation that was so much misinformation, it's criminal, more criminal hypocrisy and criminal lies, stating that cannabis was this dangerous compound being brought up from Mexico, wreaking havoc in communities, driving people violent and insane. You could murder, you would rape, you would have no conscience, you would have no memories, you would have super strength apparently. You would be severely addicted from your first puff, that there was no escaping that addiction except a horrible death. Go and look it up yourself. It's in a book called The Black Candle. The chapter on cannabis was rewritten for Maclean's magazine. It was written in 1923 and it ran in 1923, and it scared the population of Canada into not even questioning the federal government and prohibiting cannabis. It ran again, I don't know when that would have been, back in the 90s. They reran that article, and that's what caught my attention. That's what had gotten me. Mm-hmm. That's why I went to the first pot rally that I went to in 1999 for 420 at the Art Gallery in Vancouver, and in my pocket I had that ripped out article from Maclean's magazine.
Wow.
And we were there because my son had turned 16, and I wasn't happy about the prospects of him being a criminal like I had been for all of my life because of these ridiculous, unjustified laws. And when we saw the advertisement for a protest on April 20th at the Art Gallery, that's where we went. And so, for 5 years, we went to these things and volunteered our time and helped out as best we could. But it wasn't until I volunteered my time to David Malmo Levine on the side to renovate a building 1 block over at Wasting and Payne. It wasn't until those renovations that I really understood what was wrong about this. Mm-hmm. I knew I wasn't a criminal based on what I understood a criminal to be. Like I said, I took law. I had an interest in law. I thought I had a pretty good working understanding of the nature of criminality and the common law. And this didn't fly. No. This criminality of people because they have some flower that they think makes them feel better and the government says makes them insane. Although by that time, it had gone from being violent and insane to just, lazy and disengaged. And none of that's true. So, that was the beginning of my journey, and here we are. And we've been trying to achieve legalization properly ever since.
And low-berry access.
Our mantra, we didn't have that as a mantra to begin with. Our mantra was legalize and regulate.
Okay.
We should have had the mantra, legalize and regulate low barrier access to cannabis.
Yeah.
But we're not that smart. Hindsight, is great for humans, but foresight, not so much.
You learned along the way.
We learned along the way.
Yep.
When Trudeau comes along and fibs a little bit, maybe it was more than a little bit during the campaign lead up, about what his legalization was going to look like, we supported that. We had a big rally. We put his face on a zigzag paper that
I remember
20 feet long and
T-shirts
mounted
too.
it. T-shirts, a huge campaign. Let's vote for Justin. He's going to legalize weed. Mm-hmm. And he said during the campaign that people would not have to worry about accessing cannabis for medical reasons with his legalization. He said during the campaign that the average person would have no trouble stepping out of the unregulated market because the prices in the regular market would beat those prices, the quality would beat that quality, and it would just make a lot of sense for people to walk into a store and buy something in a nice, dignified environment like that, as opposed to seeing a dealer somewhere. He said all those things. Trust me, I heard it with my own ears. We reported on it at the time. This is what his legalization, according to him, on the campaign trail was going to look like. Of course, if you went to the Liberal website, you could see what Freddie saw.
Yeah.
Ominous words in there describing a system of legalization that strictly regulated cannabis to protect the youth and to protect the government. The legalization that they brought in upon winning a majority government from non-opposition status, first time in Canada, unheard of, they end up in government with a majority. And they bring in their legalization, and it's nothing like what we were told it was going to be by the young Liberals who helped design what was supposed to be the policies, and nothing like what Trua had to say with respect to easy access for medical users and prices that would attract, the poor people. It is criminally the opposite of what that's all about. The medical users were completely tossed aside, thrown under the bus. The access that they had through illegal cannabis dispensaries that had popped up all over the country was now systematically taken away as they busted these dispensaries one by one. In Saskatchewan, they busted 3 dispensaries that were operating there. There wasn't much more than that. Saskatchewan's a pretty downtrodden town when it comes to law enforcement because they have their whole academy in that province. And the 3 prominent dispensary owners got busted several years ago. And we haven't had legalization for 7 years, so
No.
So because I think Jerry didn't.
Oh, well, maybe.
Jerry didn't get busted
Because he had
until
a majority government, then he has a minority government, so that's almost 7 years right there.
There you go. So maybe we are there.
Right.
Maybe it was the promise of legalization that was there. But along with the promise of legalization came letters to cease and desist. We've talked about it on the show before. I mean, just a brief glimpse. You're a dispensary owner. You've got hundreds of patients. You're strict about how you provide to them with respect to their medical requirements, trying to be as in line with government policies as possible. You believe that you're going to be grandfathered into the new legalization, and well, you should be. Great track record in helping people. But that track record in helping people resulted in all these people being helped. And now a government that's corrupt and says they're bringing in legalization is going to tell you to cease and desist? Who are these people? What do they understand about ceasing and desisting in providing life-saving medicine to people? How could they make that edict? How could anybody go along with that edict?
They don't.
You can't.
It's just some guy reading a piece of paper somewhere in Ottawa, sees that you've broken some rule or law that's written on a piece of paper, and sends you a piece of paper that says cease and desist, because they never came down here.
And it also says if you don't cease and desist,
yeah,
what you're doing is illegal.
Yeah.
Well, it was illegal before that letter ever showed up. They already spent every night with their family worried that the door was going to get kicked in. Nothing new there. Is that enough motivation to have a dispensary owner who cares about his clients turn his back on those sick people? Well, it certainly wasn't, nor should it be, nor how could it be. And so they dragged those poor men through the courts and their families for the last several years. And just this last month, they dismissed the charges against Pat, the final one standing. No charges were ever completed. Nobody was ever convicted. Jerry Martin killed himself in the stress of the lead up. Who knows what it did to Pat Warnicki and Jason Siemens? I'm sure they could tell you stories, and I'm sure Pat will when he visits us here not too long from now.
Yep.
Not today, but in a show
month.
coming up.
Yep.
I'm sure they'll give us a little insight into what that means to people when you've got charges hanging over your head, when your business has been taken away, when your assets have been seized, when you're being called a criminal. That's not easy for anybody. So shame on the government for all of this. But those charges now all been dropped. Pat gets to go and get his stuff back, what's left of it. This is just such a horrible thing going on that I can't settle for allowing it to continue the way it is, and us having carved out a little nook where they're going to allow us to have an RV where people can come in the rain and the snow and the heat and the wind and get some cannabis.
At low barrier access.
With low barrier access.
Exactly.
That's not a win. That doesn't protect future providers of cannabis that are outside the Trudeau cartel. That keeps us at risk, especially if it's just on a technicality. Health Canada and the federal government, they're going to continue to try to stop us. They're certainly not going to easily give in to just allowing for low barrier cannabis shops, because that would be very harmful to the bottom line profits of the cartel's licensees. So they're going to protect those licensees as best they can. And lucky for them, they've got an unlimited supply of tax dollars to do that with. There might be an upper limit somewhere, but they can work well within that, that's for sure. They can spend however many millions of dollars they just spent in Saskatchewan on that case, only to decide, oh, we're going to drop the charges now. I guess it wasn't worth it. It wasn't in the public's interest. They're supposed to know that before they start spending money in any significant way. Not 7 years after they've murdered one person and ruined the lives of a couple other families and withheld access to people in those towns for all this time. Whitewood is a backwater right now. It's awash with hard drug addiction. The work that Jerry Martin did to clean that town up and have it looking like a decent place to live has all been undone because the cannabis had to go away and the hard drugs stayed. It sounds ludicrous, doesn't it? It sounds insane. Why would a government of public servants kick out cannabis dispensaries and allow hard drug addicts to thrive? The answer is because they're trying to cash in on cannabis legalization, and they have severely monetized and politicized the overdose crisis so that they want people dying of overdoses. They want neighborhoods in big cities and other small towns to be infested with people struggling with poverty and addiction so that they can say they're doing something about it. So that they can say, hey, look, there's a problem here, folks, and we're aware of it. And don't worry, we're going to fix it for you because we got a whole bunch of your money. And yeah, you'll be able to buy cannabis. Whitewood still doesn't have a dispensary. But there's some in other towns not too far away. You can go for a drive for an hour and a half and get yourself some government weed. Of course, if you were like most people using Jerry Martin's dispensary, you were much more interested in the edibles and the high concentrates because that's what really helps people with their medical needs. And that's not available in those stores. So those people are turning to hard drugs or finding other ways to get their cannabis in an unregulated marketplace and trying to navigate all the pitfalls and nightmares involved in that. People preying on patients. It's a terrible situation. And we're here to try to solve it. That's been what cannabis culture and the activists from Vancouver have been working on since the beginning. Like I said, if we'd have realized that legalize and regulate without low barrier access just meant that they would legalize it, so you're allowed to have it, but if you're going to buy it, you have to buy it off of them.
And they don't even know how to grow it.
Yeah. So now they've recruited some decent growers,
yes.
and of course, as it had to happen, and probably some of that government cannabis is probably worth having, but it's not worth buying.
It's very expensive.
It's not worth buying. It's expensive because it's going to cost you more money than it should, and that's because of taxation at all the different levels of government, and the packaging, and the restrictions, the high-level security that the growers have to work under, all the rest of it. It's expensive because it's undermining our entire justice system to have these laws where you have legal cannabis over here and you still have illegal cannabis over here. It completely brings our justice system into disrepute to have police walk into a cannabis store and buy their weekend supply of cannabis and then go back on duty and arrest somebody for getting some from their neighbor or their cousin or somebody else that's not part of the cartel. That's criminal hypocrisy going on right there. That undermines our entire justice system and brings it into disrepute. That is a big cost to this country and our systems. A huge cost. Because part of that is people having their lives continued to be ruined by the illegal cannabis laws. And that's actually not an oxymoron. That's probably how it should be. On this side, they're illegal cannabis laws. On this side, cannabis is being maintained as illegal, unjustly. The lives that are ruined, the dollars to law enforcement, the societal undermining of the idea of justice, all of that stuff is extremely expensive to our society. All that stuff tarnishes our reputation worldwide. And in the end, if this was to win out, and this is what we end up settling for or having to accept, we will not be seen as the bastion of freedom that we had been prior to that.
Yeah.
Canada, the bastion of freedom, needs to come up with a legalization that is based in freedom, that is based in tolerance, and an understanding of the dynamics and the nature of the substances involved. There is no justification for making cannabis illegal. Never has been. There is justification for making cannabis readily and easily available, even supplemented by government and not taxed. There's a great argument for that. So here we are. We're not going to give in. This is just another tactic by the Crown. I suspect that their evidence is sloppy on purpose. I suspect that they're saying, well, they might not show up tomorrow either. In fact, the prosecutor volunteered to my lawyer that she could make them be sick for another day if he would like that.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
She said, would you like me to have them sick for tomorrow too? They want this case to go away.
Yeah.
I am sitting there with a confident smile on my face. I am not a criminal. I don't look like a criminal. I'm not going to act like a criminal. And they are going to be seen as criminally hypocritical and criminally lying to make their case. They want it to go away.
Even the judge is on your side. She told that sheriff to give you the comfortable seat.
Yes.
Right?
There was that moment in time.
Because he said, no, you can't have that seat, so he had to sit in his low seat again.
Yeah.
And the judge said, is there a problem with him having that seat? He is an elderly gentleman. Would you like that seat? She says. And Neil goes, yes.
Well, she said, do you have back problems? I said, well, not so much, but it's very low.
Yeah.
And she said, well, then you should sit in the higher seat.
Yes. And
she was really good. I think I like her.
Yeah.
I suspect she likes me, but you know, let's see where all that goes.
She's a nice lady.
I have a girlfriend, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I get that.
Don't have a pen. Oh, it's over there.
Yeah.
I heard it go the other way.
Down there.
So they want this to go away. There's no question about that. They've tried every which way but sideways, and now they're going to try that one too.
Yeah, like I was saying, it just really looks like they were appeasing the people who make the rules. They said they've done your job. They busted you. This judge says I can't go forward. We're going to throw the charges out. You know, and it was a waste of time and your money and everything. Yes, yeah.
This is a big time waste of our money.
If it turns out to be that way,
my money, your money, court time, police resources, other cases that could have been brought. My lawyer could be working on things that are really important, although this is really important, I must say. But it's only really important because of where the government is on this.
It's too bad that you can't sue the government like you can if you were in jail. So if you did 10 years for a murder that you didn't commit, you get money for that. If you get charged with something and they throw it out, you should be able to get some reimbursement back.
If you talk to Bricks, he'll tell you that we have plenty of grounds, all of us, for bringing forward lawsuits against the government for all the different inconveniences and problems that have been caused by them maintaining these policies.
Tort.
That was it. The government has millions and millions of dollars set aside to settle these tort cases. They do it quite quickly and without much effort, apparently. We just need to get our act together and have a few people do it. I mean, I hope...
I would do it with you.
Well, talk to Bricks and, and see what it takes. And I would do it with Bricks as well.
Yeah.
You know, my health isn't good and my time and capacities have been diminished severely here. But, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. But I think lots of people should be looking into that.
We can't do that only if they throw it out. Then we can do that, right?
Oh, I don't know about that. I think you could bring a case of tort damages against them at any time because you've suffered tort damages.
Yeah.
My whole life, from 15 on has been directed by these bad laws.
Yep.
It has affected me in so many ways that I should be liable for a whole bunch more of you taxpayers' money, because that's all the government has is tax dollars. They don't have any of their own money. But these things on principle should be brought forward. But for me, at this point, I've worked really hard to get us to here. And where we are here is where we're before the courts. We hopefully will get an opportunity to present our evidence. And our evidence should be sufficient to firmly establish the medical value of cannabis and to have the Cannabis Act set aside. I don't want to settle for much less than that. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
We'll see what the prospects are. There's a time to hold them and there's a time to fold them.
Never
We'll
take
see
a
what happens.
gift horse in the mouth.
Well, you know,
I don't know. You're just saying
the
things,
gift,
right?
the
Yeah.
gift I want
Yeah, it's the one that
is not to just have the charges dropped so I don't have to write a letter or do a few hours of community service. I don't want that win.
But if they drop the charges, they won't charge you again.
That's not
right?
true.
No,
That's
because
not
the courts have already said this is no good, right?
If they dismiss the case on a technicality, they can bring it forward
okay.
again.
Gotcha.
And we would live in fear of
the
that.
Crown would have to appeal that decision of the judge to throw it out.
No.
No. Okay. I don't
They
know
might.
much
They
about
might
that.
anyway. They might anyway. You know, these are part of the possibilities that could happen.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. But no, I'm willing to take a little bit of a risk for myself personally to follow this through, to use what we've established here, and set the Cannabis Act aside and get medical cannabis established, and then let's see the government tell Canadian citizens that they have to go through a bunch of hoops to get a medicinal herb that can help them, when you can get pharmaceutical drugs that are toxic and dangerous within half an hour of leaving your doctor's office complaining about pain that they can't even test for.
Some pharmacies are right next door to your doctor's office.
Almost always.
Yeah, right? Right? Or within the vicinity of a doctor's office. Very close, yeah.
Very close. Very close. They make it very easy.
My doctor's office is...
See, that's the thing. It's
in the superstore.
Easy.
Yeah.
Low barrier access.
Yeah.
Well, Superstore is owned by Shoppers, or at least by the parent company.
Yeah, but my doctor has an office in our Superstore, and it's right beside the pharmacy.
Yeah, you'll notice Save On and all these places, Safeway. They have pharmacies in their stores. And like I say, the parent company that owns Shoppers also owns those places.
Yeah.
And it's a big scam, let's face
Walmart
it.
does the same thing. Walmart has doctor's offices.
And I think they're part of that same group. Maybe not.
No, they're owned
part
by
of
somebody in the States.
The Wall.
A family.
People.
Yeah, a family owns Walmart, yeah.
They got a few extra bucks, those people.
Yeah. So it's crazy. It really is.
It's all about money, folks.
Somebody pointed out that you have to go to the back of the store to get prescription medicines, but you can buy something that'll kill you, tobacco, at the front of the store.
Yeah.
Right? You have to walk all the way to the back of the store to get healthy, or to be healthier, but we'll kill you at the front with a pack of smokes. Right?
Some debate as to how healthier you are using pharmaceuticals. But
yes, I know.
But the pharmaceutical companies are also invested in the vitamin companies.
Yeah.
And and they're all mixed in with the pharmaceuticals in that department.
Yeah.
It's such a scam. It is just such a scam.
Herbal medicines are the way to go.
What this is all about on their end is money. What it's all about on our end is what's right. Mm-hmm. And it's about looking after patients, poor people, and sick people first. The vulnerable people in our society need to be protected. They should be protected by a government. Instead, they're being protected at this point loosely by the CSP and the healing wave. We're doing our best to stand in the face of that oppression and continue to have an outpost available for people to come to. We had people from Chilliwack here yesterday that had heard about us. We have people coming all through the Fraser Valley. They shouldn't have to drive for hours out of their...
That could be because of the Whiskey Wizards that came to Surrey. Because they're part of their...
I have no idea.
Well, they're a very big charity. They help out people at Christmas time.
I actually talked to these people. I welcomed them here. I asked them about it.
Yeah.
They have family that lives in this neighborhood.
Yeah.
And they're the ones who were telling them about the 5 for $5 bags.
Oh, okay.
And the $1 joints.
Yeah.
So they shouldn't have to travel like that. You know, I mean, why can't the people in rural British Columbia have a store to walk into where they can purchase cannabis at low barrier? Why are they only given the opportunity to purchase cannabis from Canada, from the cartel? You know, it's making huge money for a bunch of unscrupulous people, and it's taking it right out of the pockets who in many cases can't even afford it, but they're doing it anyway. You know, there's people out there that have to choose their cannabis medicine over paying their rent, their mortgage, their food.
Same with pets. Some people have to choose between pets and food, right? Or pets and rent, or pets and hydro, or whatever, right?
Well, I mean, if you want to have a pet, that's your business. They are not cheap, and you better have the resources to look after them.
But they're just saying, since COVID,
but
you
if
have
you want
to be in the high tier now to have a pet because of the price of food, right?
The price of food, the price of vets is ridiculous.
Yeah.
The rules around what you have to do with your animal is kind of ridiculous, here in the city anyway. It's not like on the farm, that's for sure. So I don't want to get into that because there's such a difference between people having pets and people needing cannabis for medical reasons. And I understand that pets are a medical accessory.
Can be, yeah.
In many cases they are. Hopefully you have a good pet that helps you when you're down. But
I have a stray cat. He comes to visit me.
That's the best way.
Is it? Yeah. He tries to come in, but I can't. I can't.
You live vicariously through other people's pets.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, and he likes my tent to keep him dry. So.
Nice. He probably likes you too.
The canopy, right? The canopy. I've got it set outside.
Yeah.
So.
Nice.
But that's Richard the cat. With him, Richard.
So we're following through. We're hoping that essentially we lose this round in that it's not just dismissed without proper cause, because we believe that we have what it takes in that real round of hearings to be able to accomplish our goals there and get a precedent that is very, very good. Of course, there's also the risk that we set a bad precedent. So, you know, I think I've got one of the best lawyers in the business.
Yep.
And I think that we've got one of the best cases you could ever have. I don't know how it could get any better. And, you know, with a little bit of tenacity and articulation, I think we should be able to win this. And a judge who's not too corrupt, I mean, we need that on our side too, right? I don't know where the judges stand on all this. The judges should be kind of upset, although it's given them a lot of work.
Yeah, and she didn't even have any information to base. Remember, she was asking the Crown Attorney for...
What cases?
Yeah, cases, right? Yeah, they couldn't even do that.
So when the Crown and my lawyer were talking after the judge had left, you know, there was like, these people are going to take the stand tomorrow, blah blah blah. And I said, when are the victims coming in?
Yeah.
When are we going to have the victims on the stand? And she looked a little bit befuddled by that, and Jack blurts out, "Well, there are no victims."
Yeah.
Right. Then what are we doing?
This is only a preliminary, sir.
Then what are we doing in a criminal law?
Yeah.
In a criminal case, if there are no victims, how does that fly? Or are the victims the holders of licenses with the government cartel, who the poor people are being stuck with not having all of the business because we're suggesting that there should be stores that can undercut them, or that they should undercut what they have in their stores for people who don't want to buy the expensive stuff. I maintain that there's a viable market for the expensive stuff. Lots of people would still want to have that. There's a prestige to having expensive cannabis, and there's a belief that that cannabis just must be better than the other stuff that's grown maybe in a hybrid greenhouse or outdoors or whatever. So they would still have a good marketplace. Some people don't mind spending $4,454 or $4,540 for a pound of weed at $10 a gram, and more than that for the government stuff, depending on how good a cannabis you want to buy from them. Some people don't feel too much of a pinch for that. It's not that far off of what they've been paying for the last 40, 30 years here. So they would still have a viable business. But even if they didn't, well, screw them. Screw them. You don't get to use taxpayer dollars to run a protection racket to maintain artificially high prices to make a killing off of the people that can afford it, and in the process killing the people that can't. You don't get to do that, or you shouldn't be able to get to do that. The fact that the government's trying to establish that is absolute criminal. I'd put hypocrisy there. I'd put lies there. I'd say just criminal. This is just criminal. Do they not get it? On an aside, sort of on an aside, I mean, not to do with this court case, but I sent a package of cannabis to Mary McCarty, who's hurting in Manitoba.
Yep.
Now, I took one of our CSP flyers,
Yeah.
which I don't see handy.
Over there.
That's okay. And, well, hand me
You want
that.
me going?
Yeah, hand me that.
Oh, what of it?
Geez, it's 5 o'clock already. I
is.
must be sleep talking.
You are. No.
So I took one of our cannabis substitution folders. I put a little more than an ounce of cannabis into it. I sealed it all up here. I sealed it all up here. And I sealed it all up here with tape. The cannabis that I put in there was not loose. It was in a zipper lock bag, 2 of them. And then I took this to the post office, sealed up like that, and we put it into a post office sealed bag, and we sent it off to Mary. Well, it didn't get there, and it didn't get there, and then it did get there, and then she couldn't have it. We were standing there with it, and they wouldn't give it to her. Oh, we can smell marijuana.
Well, that's right.
This is being seized. It's dangerous. Really? So, I was really pissed at that. I immediately put together another package for Mary. This time, I triple bagged it inside the box that I put it in, small box. I took the box and I wrapped it with clear packing tape all the way around like you would a hockey stick, all the way around the other way, down all the seams, made sure there was no escaping of anything. And they seized that one too. So yesterday I went through the process of discussing it with them and complaining about it. They put me onto a supervisor after a fairly long and I must say fairly friendly conversation with the person at the other end of the line, who seemed to be somewhat sympathetic to our plight there. And to my posing to her how wrong and ridiculous this is, how it's been made legal. There's government stores you can buy it in. People send cannabis and other things through the mail all the time. She put me onto a supervisor who said, yes, people send cannabis all the time. Yes, it's legal, but we can't be smelling it. You're tainting the other mail, she said. I said the smell must have been really, really slim, for one thing, on that first package. And I really doubt your sniffer dogs could even pick up the scent on the second one. I'm sure you flagged it because of the 2 addresses involved. In any case, she put me onto a supervisor, as I said. The supervisor would not budge an inch. She almost scolded me for putting a package into the mail that was undeliverable because of its odor. I said, have you got any injury reports from any of your postal employees, due to the smell of cannabis? Have you had any complaints from people in writing about their mail smelling a bit like cannabis? Is there any justification for what you're doing? Or are you just in the past living like as if cannabis was still illegal and a terrible commodity that must be stopped at all costs? I told her I would never ever give Canada Post another penny. I will not send anything else through Canada Post. They can screw themselves. They are evil, evil, stupid, hurtful people. I said to her, this nice little, I don't want to call her an old lady, but this nice elderly lady is in pain. She's so excited about getting her medicine, and you're going to wave it in front of her face and say you can't have it because I think I can smell it? Who are you people?
And do they not know the law says that you're allowed to gift up to 30 grams? And now it's only 28 grams, so they have no leg to stand on.
I had more than 30 grams in there.
Oh, did you?
But I'm a licensed medical holder, right?
Yeah.
And she also has, medical reasons for using cannabis. Some corrupt government is going to tell me that I can only send to her 30 grams of medicine all the way to Manitoba for the ridiculous prices that Canada Post charges to be able to send stuff through the mail. And then I got to do it all over again 2 weeks later because she's going to be out. These are unreasonable, unjustified, evil policies that need to be challenged. I put in my complaint. They filled out a form for me. All it's going to do is put my address before the federal government, who's now going to come and probably investigate me for sending cannabis through the mail.
Well, no, because they provide envelopes for you to do that now.
Yep.
Yeah,
if you sell,
yep.
if you send the right amount, they've got a thing there that tells you how you can package it up and send it.
A smell-proof envelope.
I don't care anymore, Canada Post.
Yeah.
I'm not ever sending anything through you again. You can have that ridiculous policy if you want. I don't care. I will give my money to the private companies, and they won't give me this hassle. Never have, never will. So, yeah, I'm quite upset about all of that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, some interesting moments today.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's all craziness.
Are we going to go outside?
Yeah, I guess we'll go
Do you have
outside.
the energy to do that today? You're pretty tired.
I am pretty tired,
Why
but...
don't we just...
No, okay, let's not go outside.
Yeah, all right. Let's just call it a night, or I'll let you wrap it up a little bit there and talk a little bit more. I'll go back.
I mean, the good news is I made it through court today.
Yeah, and you're going to make it through tomorrow?
I'm going to make it through
I'll be
tomorrow.
here.
I'm going to bed right away here.
Yeah.
To get enough sleep to do that.
All right. I'll be back.
I took a vitamin infusion yesterday.
Yeah, B12.
Oh. You know, they tell you a shot in the arm is a good thing. Well, not if it's B12, apparently, and not if you're me. I'm skin and bones. I'm 120 pounds now.
Yeah.
And that shot right into my muscle in my shoulder, it radiated severe pain. And I'm used to pain. I've been living in pain for a long time.
But it's more pain that we
right down to my fingertips, all the way up into the back of my head.
Wow.
Every time I just moved my head the slightest bit, it just radiated serious pain from the spot. I'd been for an hour and a half sitting with an IV in my arm, which didn't go in easily. Went into the same arm as they did last week because they tried to do the different arm, and for the second week in a row had trouble getting it in the vein, even though the vein is right there and obvious, in my opinion. And even though at Life Labs, when I went to get blood work done in between this, it was simple and easy. I didn't feel very much at all. I don't look at it. I can't look at needles. Thank God it kept me off of needles as a young man with a lot of emotional problems growing up in a place where a lot of people ended up on hard drugs. Thank goodness I don't like needles. I can't stand them. I can't stand looking at them. I don't want them stuck in me. Thanks to a dentist back when I was younger. And so, all those needles stuck in me, boy, I was in some pretty serious pain there. They made me stay there for about 45 minutes until it sort of subsided, and then I kind of threw my coat on, and for the next hour, I really couldn't use this arm at all. I didn't use it for steering my car. I could barely do anything with it. But whatever, an hour later I was fine, back in bed, even laying on that shoulder, and I'm okay today. I can still feel it. I can still feel the pain there. I can still feel the pain in here. But whatever. I guess I'm not getting the B12 shots anymore.
No.
And as for energy, well, I think I would have had energy today because these sorts of events energize me to begin with.
Yeah.
Although 2 months ago, as you know, it was looking pretty grim.
Yeah, you didn't know.
I didn't know that I was going to make it to this date in March. I didn't know that I was not going to be just put into a hospital bed with a feeding tube and see what they could do for me.
Pretty close.
I was pretty damn close. Yes, I was.
Yep.
And then I had a breakthrough. I managed to force myself to swallow some liquids that weren't going down for a few days prior to that. Since then, it's gotten, well, most days easier and easier to swallow, although I'm still not able to swallow solid food, although I have tried some recently without too much success. And to be fair, yesterday and today, having a bit of trouble swallowing liquids again.
Oh, okay.
But they're going down.
They're going down.
And I'll continue to make sure they go down.
Okay.
And, I'm on a whole bunch of really healthy stuff.
You are. I can see it all underneath there.
I'm doing a bunch of really healthy things, and my body needs to rest.
Yeah.
So I put in the smoothie that I make with all these amazing products that people have recommended to me. I have a lot of good people around me. And then I need to sleep and let my body do its thing. I think I'm winning. I get scans at the end of April to tell me whether I am or not, and we'll see where we're at.
We will.
But that's where we're at now. So yeah, I don't want to go outside.
Okay.
I want to kind of wrap this up. There's not much else, but before you go, Glenn.
Yep.
The Cannabis Review has been released.
Being
released. There's 54 different recommendations. The main one that they're talking about is the restructuring of the taxes, and we'll have a good look at it before next week's show. and get an understanding of whether they're restructuring up or down on the taxes.
Yeah.
Are they taking a bigger cut?
They probably will.
Or are they letting people have a break? I suspect they're letting some people have a break.
And they're not talking about increasing the edibles. I read that too. The potency. They want to keep it at 10 milligrams. They think that more than 10 milligrams is dangerous. I was like, I take 100 every night. 100 milligrams every night, and I sleep like a baby.
We have no problem with full-grown adults that are used to using cannabis using higher dose edibles. We have no problems with that. We have some problems with novice users who eat too much too fast and have an uncomfortable experience. But there's no medical malady that comes out of that other than just being afraid that they've harmed themselves in some way, but they haven't.
That afraidness only comes because they don't understand what's going through.
Exactly.
If you eat an edible and you've had somebody explain to you what is going to happen, it's not that bad anymore.
Yeah.
Because now you know that you're going to get tired, you're going to feel heavy, you're going to want to go lie down and put your head on a pillow, and just do that. And you're going to wake up and you're going to feel just great, and you're going to want to do this again.
Or start low and go slow.
That's
and
it.
Find that dose that allows you to function properly.
Yep.
And go from there.
Yep.
So
just have fun, people.
and to be fair, I mean, there's certainly been some problems. I wouldn't say they're new problems, although some of them are maybe problems that wouldn't have happened otherwise, because some people with legalization have decided to try cannabis, including edibles, and some from edibles made by friends or themselves from the cannabis they've grown themselves or friends have grown, and some of them through the government stores. And maybe they're willing to buy 10 small portions of a chocolate bar to get 100 milligrams. Hard to know. But because of all of that, there's more incidents of kids being admitted to hospital because they got into those edibles. There's some suspicion that the number of kids getting into edibles has not increased, but the number of kids being admitted to hospital has, because in the past, parents that had their edibles gotten into by their kids were very concerned about reporting that in any way.
Yeah.
They might lose their kids in their home, and who knows what else.
And just waited it out and found out the kid's going to be okay
the next day. The kid's fine.
Right, yeah.
And amongst,
hold on a minute. You can't really take it to a doctor and expect a doctor to know, because they don't train them in cannabis.
That's right.
You need to take it to somebody that's done this edibles before, and they will explain to you, don't worry.
Amongst those people that,
right?
Amongst those people that, did get their kids get into it or did eat too much themselves. I thought I had it closer.
No, you didn't.
No, I didn't. Yeah. Oh, yes, I did.
There you go. That's better.
Enough. You can see.
Yeah.
Of those people that did that, they're veteran users. They mostly understood. Most of the parents that had their kids get into that stuff understood that the kids are probably going to be fine. Get them into a quiet, dimly lit room with some nice music or humor. Have their mom there with them, or a couple fuzzy animals that they like, or whatever. And they're fine. In fact, the consensus was amongst people that not only are the kids and the animals that get into cannabis fine the next day, but they have an increased energy and an alertness level.
Yeah, because their body was able to heal a little bit, but because the endocannabinoid system was activated while they were sleeping and making them feel a lot better the next time that they wake up. Yeah.
And Glenn's so right. And if you don't know what the endocannabinoid system is, please have a look at that. Put it into DuckDuckGo or Google or something like that.
And Google will be able to know how to spell it out. Just go endo and it'll come up with cannabinoids.
It's a well-searched item these days.
It is.
Thank goodness for that.
It is.
So, that's what's happening on that. We'll see what the review has to say, and we'll see whether it's in line with what we're trying to achieve in the courts. It might be all just a waste of time, because the whole thing is going to be struck down depending on what happens in the courts coming up here. Not just with our case, but with Ted Smith's case moving forward in the courts, and other ones as well. So we'll see. And I think that the dismissal or the charges being dropped in that Saskatchewan case is going to bode very well for what ourselves and Ted Smith and others are trying to do. So we'll see. I think likely
there was a difference with that case because it was pre-legalization, right?
Right, but that's a difference that goes in our favor.
Okay.
If pre-legalization, the courts have dismissed charges against people who were selling without a license when there was no license, then you would think that post-legalization there would be even less justification in going after people that are trying to fill the gaps, and that's all we're doing is filling the gaps in the Cannabis Act and in the legalization.
Showing them where they were wrong.
Yeah, showing them that,
mistakes.
Go ahead, have expensive cannabis for people. Go ahead, keep the growers growing that grow to those standards and allow them to make good money. But don't eliminate access to the people that would like to buy cannabis at more reasonable prices produced by farmers who produce it in less expensive ways.
Yeah.
And that all can happen. So I think that in the end they have to get it right. I'm very hopeful. I'm optimistic. I don't think I'd be continuing the fight if I wasn't. But this whole thing, this review, all the money, oh my God. Do they review the Tomato Act? The Beer Act? Anything,
maybe on alcohol.
The Cashew Act, I mean, how much of this gets large bodies of well-paid, taxpayer-funded people, sitting around a table who have never even experienced cannabis for the most part, giving their opinion on what they think legalization should look like, all with their own special interests that they're making sure to protect while they're there. This is a bogus scam that needs to stop.
Legalization should allow everybody to sell pot in a store, have as many edibles and milligrams as you can ask for, because you know yourself. Well, if I'm going to be doing edibles for the first time, I'm not going to go in there and ask them for 1,000 milligram edible, because it's fucking going to be ridiculous.
If you do, it would be nice to have people that work there to say, are you familiar with eating edibles?
Yes, and do you know what this is going to do to you? Because they're not
that's what we do here.
They're not allowed to do that here. They just sell you the product, and that's it. They're not going to tell you the benefits of it, or the harms if you've taken too much. This is, get some CBD in you to level yourself out.
No, in fact, you have to put your staff through a cannabis sales orientation course that is all about
the bud tender?
Forbidding them from discussing the medical values of cannabis and making sure that all the sales rhetoric is all about it being for recreational purposes, which makes me wonder how they manage to sell edibles. Are those for recreational purposes? I don't get that one so much. We'll bring that up in court, I'm sure.
All right,
so that's not done with you yet.
Not done yet.
One more brief thing is, man, oh man, we are getting really close to 420.
Yes.
And I know that people are mobilizing all across Canada to come to Vancouver, because Vancouver is always the hot spot for 420, and thank you people for all doing that. We are not on our regular 420 protocols of promotion going on here, because we have an evil mayor who, if he knows where we're going to try to have our protest, we're going to run into interference from him. So we've structured a way to maybe be able to have our 420 protests without too much interference from City Hall, or at least without enough interference that we can't deal with it. So 420 is going to happen in an anonymous location officially this year. There will be a couple other non-official 420s. In fact, I think 3 and maybe 4. The one that's describing itself as Legacy, I do not support. And my activist friends, for the most part, do not support that. And I won't go any farther than that, because I do have friends that are involved, mostly because they're trying to recoup the money that they put into having that event be pulled off. It is far from the Legacy 420. That 420 you'll have to pay attention to, or ask around, or when you come to Vancouver, get in touch with Cannabis Culture or myself or some other people, and we'll let you know.
It's not as secret as you've been wanting.
Well,
it
no,
to
we're
be,
trying to keep it
I've had
secret.
People asking me if this is true or not, so I've just
you're free to
softly told them. Yes.
If you know what we're doing, then you're free to tell other people that you trust.
Yeah.
We're just trying to keep it from the mayor. He's an evil piece of crap. And,
but again, if there's 4 or 5 different events, then the mayor is spread pretty thin, right? So maybe this is a good thing that we've had this spread out, right? Because he's not going to know where to go. But I'm going to say he's going to go to the beach.
A city full of 420 events is a good thing.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
The biggest one will be at the beach. Well,
there is one at the beach.
Yes, not the biggest.
I don't want to talk down on that one. I don't know what to say about that one. There are some concerns, of course.
Yep.
But the biggest concern for me is that they're promoting it. It is going to be on the city's radar. And I've heard that some police have said there's not a chance that event is going to fly. I don't know what their plan B or C or D is. Maybe they just walk down the beach a ways. Maybe they go somewhere else.
If you remember, they said that last year about the beach, and they put up fencing, and they just did it on the sand.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they didn't do anything about it on the sand.
So this year they might do something about it on the sand.
Maybe.
You never know.
Maybe.
I think they're liable to do that. I think that the mayor is not beyond doing anything like that to interfere. In our case, we have our location that we think is perfect, and that's where we're going to be. And as Glenn says, it won't be very hard to find out, unless you go and ask the mayor. Hopefully he doesn't know.
Some people know already.
Yeah, and that's fine.
Yeah.
You know, we didn't want to keep it a complete secret. We just don't want it on the City Hall's radar, that's all.
Yeah.
If it gets on the City Hall's radar, we will be prepared in a fairly quick manner to move. And we have A, B, C, and D locations to move to. And maybe we go to all of those, depending on how people feel. Maybe a half a dozen vendors go to this one, and a dozen go over here, and da-da-da-da-da. And where there was one 420 or two 420 protests, this year there's 5. When the day actually comes, maybe there's 12. You know?
We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know.
But we are resilient. We can adapt. And we are not going away. We will be relentless. We will not allow some piece of crap Chinese mayor to come here and try to turn this place into China like he's been doing for the last couple of years. The very worst mayor we have ever had in Vancouver is Mayor Sin. We have had other mayors that were not progressive, but by the time their terms were over, they'd come a very long way and consider themselves progressive after the fact. Mayor Sim is only trying to turn this place into a totalitarian state where everybody behaves, nobody steps on a line, and you can buy your cannabis from the government and the stores that he's making money on regulating. So screw him. He should get behind us and support us. If he had any sense or clue of the history and the tradition that we've established here in Vancouver, he would be behind us and supporting us and preaching about the value of 420 and the protests that we put on. But that's not the case here. We have to do it a little differently, so we will. And that's what's happening there. And I guess that's all I want to say about that. It's coming up real fast. We'll talk a little more next week about it as well.
Yeah.
And next week we'll have the summary of what happened in the trial here.
And you said 2 weeks before 420 you'll let people know.
No, I didn't say that. I said I might, a week or so ahead of time.
Okay.
I don't even know if I'm going to announce it on the show. I've had so much feedback from people, all the key people. They know what's going on. They know where they're going to be.
They'll tell their friends.
And they'll tell their friends.
Yeah.
And all we really care about is the vendors, that we need to have the vendors know that there's a place that they can come and maybe feel a little more secure.
I had a vendor reach out to me
and then the people will find out.
Yeah.
There'll be musical acts. There will be good musical acts that have followings of people, and they will come there. And we'll have good speakers, and some of those speakers have good followings of people. Dana Larson will be there. And so, we think we're going to have a pretty good event there. We'll wait and find out.
Yep.
So that's what I know.
Music, entertainment,
Education.
cannabis, and education. There we go.
Edumatainment. We
Hope to see you all on April 20th. It's a Saturday this year.
It's a Saturday.
Yes, the weekend.
Which
go slow.
Which just means that the cops are going to be making double and triple time to be there wherever they are. I'm sure they just love it. A cannabis event to disrupt. Oh my goodness!
As a person, I prefer to come on the weekend because now more people are not working.
Yes.
Right. So we're not interrupting that.
The only unknown factor that factors in there would be the weather.
Yeah.
We get a nice day on a Saturday. We'll have a lot of people out wanting to support us, and
we'll see.
Hopefully maybe a lot of people at the other events as well.
Yeah.
I think we move forward having several 420s in the city.
They cut the head off the snake, and now it's growing 5 heads.
Yeah. Well, 4 anyway, maybe
4,
5.
Maybe.
and one of those 5, you cut that one off, you might end up with 4 more.
Yep.
We'll see what happens, but we're going to have some fun with it as we always do. I'm sure it's going to be a very eventful day. I'm sure if the mayor does try some pushback, and I'm pretty sure he will, the way he went at Cannabis Day, pretty sure he's been licking his chops for 420 for quite a while.
Well, to wait and see.
And we'll have some fun with that. Anybody that's going to 420, make sure you bring your camera, because there'll be good video of police overstepping their powers as peace officers. And we're going to have a lot of video at the end of 420 to post on YouTube and other places on social media, depending on what the mayor and the police decide to do. So have at it. Knock yourself out trying.
We are 24 days away.
Yeah, eh?
Today's the 26th.
Which is, kind of 420 in reverse. So.
Yeah. Oh, and did you know that 420, the date on that date will be the same backwards and forwards?
Yeah, and that doesn't happen again for a whole long time.
Oh, yeah. So it's 420, 4-20-2024, and then backwards is 420, 2024. Yeah. Wow.
I know. So it's a special year.
It is.
And maybe this is the year when we achieve our goals of actually getting low barrier access to cannabis in a store that gives people some dignity and respect. We'll see. I'm optimistic. I hope you are too, because hope and optimism results in relentless pursuit, and that's what will win the day for us.
I would have said with hope in that comes truth, hope, and change.
We hope that with that much truth, we get the change we're looking for. Yes, we do. THC provided a very interesting title for the show, and we seized upon it, and it sure does make a lot of sense that what we're seeking here is telling the truth and getting some change, because that truth will provide the hope that we need to motivate people to be the relentless activists that we all need to be to push this over the top. I think we reached the tipping point, but if we stop here and we settle for what we've got right now, there'll be a whole lot of work still to be done to really get the legalization we deserve. So I think I covered everything.
Yeah, just come on down tomorrow, 222 Main Street, 9 a.m. Smoke in front of a courthouse. Now, when was the last time that you were able to do that? If you want to come on down and have a big puff and in front of all the cops and all the lawyers and stuff like that, then this is the place to do it for the next 2 days, Wednesday and Thursday.
I'm sure the proceedings will be interesting.
Yeah.
I haven't promoted it to the point because I'm not looking for a huge crowd of people to sway the judge's opinion. Like I say, we would kind of like to have this carry on to July and not have it just be dismissed on technicalities, which it looks like they're posturing to be able to allow us to do. Mm-hmm. Not what I'm looking for, not what I want. Let's get legalization the way it should be, and with your help, we can do all of that. So you can stay where you are.
All right.
Unless you need to be over there.
Well, I got to end it, but sure, no problem.
So, that's kind of it for that. A big thank you to all the people involved. We've got 7 CSPs operating in Canada right now. At least one more that is not official. Probably some more than that I'm not even aware of. But under the banner of the CSP, there's 7 other groups besides us. And we've been doing what we've been doing for 7 years. And I have to have a huge thank you to so many people. I can't list you all. I can't even begin. And I wouldn't want to.
How many people they're helping, right?
I was trying to go through, how many principal operators of these CSPs and how many volunteers do they have? How many people are wearing the CSP colors at this point and are a real part of what we're doing here, not just partaking in the service, but actually helping to make a difference. It is huge.
I even have a white T-shirt that has a CSP badge, but it's got a burn mark too, just to make it official.
This sweater here, I bought this from a head shop.
Yeah.
And it came with a burn in it.
There you go.
And that's your badge of honor.
Yeah, there you go.
And I'm lying at this point, just so you know. The truth is, I did not buy this from a head shop. That was not placed there on purpose as a badge of honor. But I'll leave it on there as a badge of honor. Every once in a while, we burn ourselves,
Yeah, or the heater will fall.
Or our clothes.
The heater falls, yes.
Well, especially when you're using heavy concentrates, and you maybe got some little chunks of diamond or hash or something in there. When the heater gets to that, it can fall off.
It does.
And sometimes we get little burns here and there.
Yeah.
And it's no big deal. Nobody ever burned themselves to bits with cannabis.
I got a little melting
like they have
in the
with
leather
cigarettes.
seats. A little melting in the leather seats. Doesn't burn all the way through, but it did melt it a little bit.
Oh, now we know it's your car.
Yeah.
And seeds too can catch fire and pop and burn and all sorts of things. So, in any case, thanks to everybody that helps. There's just so many people involved with the CSP. There's so many people involved in the real legalization movement. I don't feel alone at all. In fact, I'm constantly contacted by more and more different people. We did an interview here a few days ago with a fellow named Gabor, but not that Gabor. but also a fellow Hungarian and also working on drug policy, a documentary film maker from Hungary who came and did an informative interview with myself. He had just done one with Jody, and he's looking to do that again with both of us as there's more information to tap out of that. So thank you to everybody. Thank you to all of my fellow activists and colleagues, to Glenn for helping me produce, for Cannabis Culture for giving me the platform.
Yes.
For everybody that helps us in all these different ways, and everybody that just helps the movement and helps the fight for freedom. Thank you all. We need you all. We need everybody to do what they can in ways that make sense for them and in ways that resonate with them, as everybody has different ideas about what will work. And if we have a whole bunch of these different ideas all working at the same time, I believe we can bring this beast down, and we can maybe establish a marketplace for cannabis that makes reasonable sense both to the suppliers and the growers and to the consumers of cannabis, but that the fight from there continues to put governments in their place, to put the limits on the government that need to be there, to never again allow for public servants in a democratic government to make one of nature's most beneficial plants a criminal offense to possess. That should never happen again. So there needs to be a real increase in transparency, in limits on government, in their accountability for doing things like that and being corrupt. We need to get the corruption out of our freedom to be able to actually be free. And until it happens, we're not. And as long as cannabis is illegal, how can anything else be safe? Because if they can go after you for a benign, beneficial, medicinal herb with hundreds and thousands of years of helping people and no history of hurting anybody except for lies that were written and told to protect financial interests, if they can get away with that, you're not free and you won't be free. So this is the fight for freedom. Thank you, thank you, thank you to everybody that cares and is willing to do something about it. Without you people, I wouldn't have the hope that I need to be able to honestly tell the truth and get the change that we need.
And thank you for allowing me to be here too. And also,
more than happy.
Mary was watching.
Nice. Hi, Mary. Mary, I'll be sending you off another package right away. I didn't have the capacity today. It's been a very trying day for me. And yeah, you'll be getting another package soon. This time it won't be coming through Canada Post. This time you'll get it. And, let's all hate Canada Post and never give them any of our money and make them all disappear or conform to what freedom is supposed to be about, not what the federal government is trying to push on us on behalf of a bunch of very unscrupulous corporate, financially elite bastards who just want to control our purchases and our production and our lives. So, yeah, thanks everybody. And, I like to always remind people of how serious life is and how it all depends on how you play the game. Life is full of stresses. It's full of ups and downs. It's not what happens. It's how you deal with what happens. It's how you perceive what happens and what you do about it. And I'm telling you, life is too serious to take too serious. Problems can be too dire to hang on to. Hanging on to problems usually doesn't solve them. Doing your best and then letting go of problems is what solves most things. And if it can't be solved, it can't be solved. There's only two types of things in life. Those you can change and those you can't. Happily go about doing what you can to change the things that are worth your effort to change. And don't worry about the things you can't change if there's nothing you can do. So the most important thing, therefore, for you as an individual is value your life. Value your time. Each moment is precious, and that's where you live. You don't live in the past unless you bring it to the present. And you don't live in the future unless you idolize about what that might be in the present or are scared of what that might be in the present. So, of course, the bottom line, have as much fun as you can till I see you next week.